The night I lost her. My name is Mike Reynolds, and for a long time, I believed the hardest thing a man could survive was losing the woman he loved. I was wrong. The hardest thing is finding out that the woman you loved was standing in front of you the entire time, while hiding the truth that could destroy everything you had built together. I remember the night it happened. It was raining heavily in Seattle, Washington, the kind of rain that made the streets shine beneath the yellow lights and turned every passing car into a blurry reflection. I was sitting alone in my truck outside a small apartment building on Pine Street. My hands were wrapped around the steering wheel. I hadn't moved for almost 20 minutes. On the passenger seat was a small blue box. Inside was an engagement ring. I had bought it that afternoon. I had spent 3 months looking for the right one. Not because it was expensive, because I wanted it to mean something. I wanted to ask Eva to marry me. Eva Mitchell. The woman who had somehow walked into my life when I wasn't looking for anyone and made me believe that maybe love wasn't something people eventually grew tired of. We had been together for almost 2 years. She knew my worst habits. She knew how quiet I became when I was stressed. She knew that I hated hospitals, that I drank my coffee black, and that whenever something went wrong, my first instinct was to fix it instead of talking about it. And I knew her. At least I thought I did. That night, I was supposed to surprise her. I had planned everything. A small dinner. Candles. Her favorite wine. Then I would get down on one knee. Simple. Perfect. But when I reached the entrance of her apartment building, something felt wrong. Her car wasn't there. I called her. No answer. I called again. Still nothing. Then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. A black SUV was parked across the street. The engine was running. Someone was sitting inside. I don't know why, but I stayed in my truck and watched. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out. I didn't recognize him. He walked toward Eva's building and disappeared through the entrance. I felt something cold spread through my chest. I told myself there was an explanation. There had to be. Maybe he was a friend. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe someone from work. I almost laughed at myself. Jealousy. That was all. I reached for the engagement ring. Then my phone vibrated. A message from Eva. Just 5 words. Mike, please don't come upstairs. I stared at the screen. I read it again and again. Then another message appeared. There's something you need to know. I should have listened. I should have driven away. Instead, I opened the truck door, stepped into the rain, and walked toward the building. Because sometimes the moment that destroys your life is the same moment that finally reveals the truth. And that night, I was about to discover that I didn't know even nearly as well as I thought I did. I stood in the hallway outside Eva's apartment, listening to the rain hitting the windows at the end of the corridor. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Her message was still glowing on my phone. There's something you need to know. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I wanted to believe I was being stupid, but then I heard voices coming from behind her door. One of them was Eva's. The other belonged to the man I had seen entering the building. I stepped closer. I couldn't understand every word, but I could hear the anger in his voice. You promised me you wouldn't tell him. Eva answered quietly. I didn't promise you anything. My heart started beating faster. Who was this man, and why was he talking about me? I reached for the doorknob. Then I stopped. I remembered Eva's message. Please don't come upstairs. For the first time since meeting her, I was afraid of what I might discover. I knocked. The voices immediately stopped. There was silence. Then Eva opened the door. The moment she saw me, all the color disappeared from her face. Mike, she looked terrified. Not surprised. Terrified. I looked past her. The man was standing near the kitchen. He was probably in his mid-30s, tall, with dark hair and a scar above his eyebrow. He looked at me without saying anything. I looked back at Eva. Who is he? She swallowed. Mike, please come inside. No. My voice sounded colder than I expected. Who is he? The man finally spoke. My name is Daniel. Eva closed her eyes. Daniel, you need to leave. He didn't move. Instead, he looked directly at me. You deserve to know. Daniel. Eva's voice cracked. He ignored her. She didn't tell you about me, did she? I felt my stomach drop. No. Daniel nodded slowly. Of course she didn't. I stepped into the apartment. Tell me. Eva grabbed my arm. Mike, please. Not like this. I pulled my arm away. Then tell me the truth. Her eyes filled with tears. For several seconds, she just stared at me. Then she whispered something I never expected to hear. Daniel is my brother. I froze. Her brother? I looked at Daniel. He didn't look like Eva, but there was something familiar about his eyes. Still, that wasn't what frightened me. It was the way they were looking at each other. There was history between them. A painful history. Why have I never heard about him? Eva wiped her cheek. Because I didn't want him in my life anymore. Daniel laughed bitterly. You mean you didn't want him in your perfect little life? Eva turned toward him. Leave? No. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded photograph. Then he handed it to me. I hesitated before taking it. The picture showed Eva is standing beside a much younger Daniel. They were outside a small house. Both were smiling. On the back of the photograph was a date. June 14th, 2017. I looked at Eva. What happened that day? She didn't answer. Daniel did. That's the day our father died. The room suddenly felt smaller. Eva's face changed. She looked at her brother with an expression I had never seen before. Fear. Not anger. Fear. Daniel walked toward the door. Before leaving, he stopped beside me. Asked her why she left home the morning after the funeral. Then he walked away. The door closed. I turned toward Eva. She was crying silently. Mike, she whispered, there's something about my family that I've never told you. I looked down at the engagement ring box still in my hand. For the first time that night, I wondered if I had almost proposed to a woman whose life was built around secrets. And I wasn't sure I wanted to know what came next. For almost a minute, neither of us spoke. I stood in the middle of Eva's apartment, still holding the photograph Daniel had given me. The engagement ring was in my other hand. Two objects. One represented the future I had imagined. The other represented a past I knew nothing about. I slowly placed both on the table. Start talking, I said. Eva looked toward the window. Rain was sliding down the glass in long, trembling lines. I knew this day would come, she whispered. What day? The day you would finally ask me about my family. I wasn't asking about your family. I looked at the photograph. I was asking why your brother thinks you ran away after your father's funeral. Eva closed her eyes. Because I did. The answer hit harder than I expected. Why? She sat down on the couch. I remained standing. My father wasn't the man you think he was. I frowned. I never met him. Exactly. Her voice became quieter. Maybe that's better. She took a deep breath. My father owned several construction companies. From the outside, we looked like a successful family. Big house, nice cars, vacations, everything people associate with money. She paused. But inside that house, things were different. I sat across from her. What did he do? Eva looked at her hands. He was controlling. Only controlling? She shook her head. He was cruel. The word hung between us. Eva told me that her father had spent years controlling every part of her and Daniel's lives. Their friends, their school, their money, even who they were allowed to date. Daniel had fought him constantly. Eva had learned to stay quiet. Then, in 2017, Daniel discovered something. Their father had been hiding money from the family. A lot of it. He had been moving company funds into secret accounts and using other people's names. Daniel confronted him. Their argument became violent. Eva was there. She remembered her father grabbing Daniel by the shirt and pushing him against a wall. She remembered screaming. She remembered Daniel pushing back. And then their father collapsed. Was he killed? I asked. Eva immediately shook her head. No, he had a heart attack. She looked at me. But everyone blamed Daniel. Everyone. The police investigated. There wasn't enough evidence to charge him. But my mother believed Daniel had caused our father's death. What did you believe? Eva looked away. I believed my brother. That surprised me. Then why did you leave? She didn't answer immediately. Finally, she said, because my mother wanted me to lie. I felt a chill run through me. Lie about what? She wanted me to tell the police that Daniel attacked my father first. You still the hair. And you refused. Eva nodded. That night, my mother told me that if I didn't cooperate, she would make sure Daniel went to prison anyway. So you left. I disappeared. She told me she packed one bag, took some cash, and left before sunrise. She changed her phone number. She moved to Seattle. She never contacted her family again, until Daniel found her. I looked at the photograph again. Why now? Eva's expression changed. Because Daniel discovered something. What? She hesitated. Then her phone rang. We both looked at the screen. Unknown number. Eva didn't answer. The phone stopped. Seconds later, a message appeared. I watched her face as she read it. What does it say? I asked. She slowly turned the screen toward me. There were only 6 words. Your father didn't die naturally. My heart stopped. I looked at Eva. She was already crying. And suddenly, I understood why she had been afraid. Whatever had happened in 2017 wasn't finished. It had only been waiting for us to find it. I read the message 3 times. Your father didn't die naturally. 6 words. 6 words that changed everything I thought I understood about Eva. I looked at her. Who sent this? I don't know. You don't know? She shook her head. I've received messages from unknown numbers before, but never anything like this. I stood up, called Daniel. I can't. Why? Because he won't answer. You still the hair. Then we find him. Eva grabbed my hand. Mike, wait. I turned around. What? Her eyes were full of fear. If you get involved, this becomes your problem too. I gave a nervous laugh. Eva, I've already been involved since the moment I walked through that door. She looked at me for several seconds. Then she nodded. You're right. We left the apartment together. Daniel's car was gone. His phone went straight to voicemail. We drove through the city for almost an hour, trying every place Eva remembered from his past. Nothing. Finally, she remembered an old storage facility on the outskirts of Seattle. Her father had rented a unit there years ago. Daniel used to visit it. When we arrived, the place looked abandoned. Rows of metal doors stretched beneath flickering lights. Eva walked toward Unit 217. She stopped in front of it. Do you have a key? She shook her head. I don't know. I noticed a small lockbox attached to the wall beside the door. Eva stared at it. Then she reached into her jacket. She pulled out a tiny brass key. I looked at her. Where did you get that? Daniel gave it to me years ago. You never used it? No. She inserted the key. The lock clicked. Inside the box was an envelope. Nothing else. Eva opened it with shaking hands. There was a photograph, a bank statement, and a handwritten note. I picked up the photograph. It showed Eva's father standing outside a restaurant. Beside him was another man. I didn't recognize him. Eva did. That's Thomas Hale. Who is he? My father's business partner. She unfolded the note. Her hands started trembling. What does it say? She didn't answer. I took the paper. There were only 2 sentences. If anything happens to me, don't trust Thomas. And don't let Eva know. I looked at her. Why wouldn't he want you to know? Eva's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. Then we heard footsteps behind us. We turned. A man stood at the end of the corridor. Dark jacket. Baseball cap. His face was hidden in the shadows. Eva grabbed my arm. Mike! The man started walking toward us. I stepped in front of her. Who are you? He stopped. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then he said one sentence. You should never have opened that box. He turned and ran. I chased him. We sprinted between the storage units. He was faster than I expected. I almost caught him near the parking lot, but he jumped into a waiting car and disappeared. I returned to Eva. She was standing beside our car, holding the envelope against her chest. Did you see his face? No. She looked toward the road. Then she whispered, Mike, I know that voice. Who was it? She shook her head. I don't know, but I could see it in her eyes. She didn't know. She was just terrified to say his name. We drove back to my apartment in silence. Neither of us spoke until we reached the parking lot. Eva finally looked at me. There's one more thing. What? The night my father died. She paused. Someone called our house before the ambulance arrived. Who? Eva looked straight into my eyes. It was Thomas Hale. I felt a cold sensation move through me. What did he say? Eva swallowed. He asked for me. Esther de Hair. Why? She shook her head. I never found out. Then my phone vibrated. A new message. Unknown number. I opened it. There was a photograph of Eva and me standing outside the storage facility. Underneath, it were 7 words. Leave Eva alone, or you'll disappear too. For the first time that night, I wasn't afraid of losing Eva. I was afraid someone was trying to make sure I never got the chance to love her. I stared at the message until the words began to blur. Leave Eva alone, or you'll disappear too. For the first time since I met her, I saw something in Eva's eyes that frightened me more than any threat could have. She wasn't surprised. She was remembering. Eva, I said quietly, who is Thomas Hale? She looked down. I don't know. That's not true. She sighed. My father trusted him. That's not what I asked. Eva walked toward the window. Thomas was around our family for years. He attended business dinners. He visited our house. My father considered him a close friend. And Daniel hated him. Why? Because Daniel believed Thomas was stealing from my father. I remembered the bank statement from the storage unit. Maybe he was. Eva turned toward me. Mike, there's something else. What? After my father died, Thomas disappeared. I frowned. Disappeared? He left Seattle. Nobody knew where he went. Until now. She nodded. I pulled out my phone. We need to find him. Eva hesitated. Ow! I know someone who can help. An old friend of mine, Jason Miller, worked in private security. He was the kind of person who could find information that wasn't easy to find. I called him. He agreed to meet us that night. An hour later, we were sitting in a quiet diner outside the city. Jason listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked at Eva. Do you have anything connected to Thomas? She handed him a photograph from the storage box. Jason studied it. Then his expression changed. I know this man. Eva leaned forward. Where? Portland. My stomach tightened. Are you sure? Yes. He owns a small consulting company there. Eva looked at me. Then we go. Jason immediately shook his head. Absolutely not. Why? Because if someone is threatening you, driving into another city to confront them isn't exactly smart. We need answers. Jason looked at Eva. You need protection first. He was right. But before we could continue, his phone rang. He answered. His face changed almost immediately. What? He listened for several seconds. Then he slowly lowered the phone. What happened? I asked. He looked at me. The storage facility was broken into. My blood went cold. What? Unit 217. Eva stood up. Was anything stolen? Jason shook his head. No. Then what did they do? He looked directly at her. They left something. He placed his phone on the table. On the screen was a photograph. The inside of the storage unit. The envelope was gone. But on the wall, someone had written a single sentence in black marker. You were never supposed to survive. Eva covered her mouth. I reached for her hand. She held mine tightly. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The threats, the secrets, the mysterious man. All of it. There was only her hand in mine. I looked in her eyes. I don't care what happened before we met. She began to cry. Ido. Why? Because you deserve someone without this much darkness. I shook my head. No, I deserve the truth. She looked at me. And if the truth makes you leave, I squeezed her hand. Then at least I'll leave knowing I loved the real you. She leaned toward me. For the first time that night, she kissed me. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't perfect. It was scared. Like she knew it might be the last time. When we pulled apart, my phone vibrated. Another unknown message. This time, there was no threat, only an address. And beneath it were 4 words. Come alone, Mike Reynolds. I stared at the screen. Eva saw the message. Her face went pale. Don't go. I looked at her. I have to. No, Mike. She grabbed my arm. That's exactly what they want. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. Maybe this wasn't about Eva anymore. Maybe I was the target. I didn't go to the address alone. Before leaving, I sent Jason the location and asked him to follow me. The address led me to an old warehouse near Seattle's waterfront. It was almost midnight. Rain covered the windshield as I parked across the street. Nothing moved. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. You're late. Thomas, you already know. Come inside. I stepped out. The warehouse doors stood half open. I walked inside. Under a single light stood a man. Thomas Hade. He looked older, but I recognized him immediately. You brought the ring, he said. He pointed at my pocket. You've been watching me. I've been watching Eva. Why? Thomas looked away. Because I promised her father I would protect her. Protect her? You've been threatening us. I never threatened Eva. I stepped forward. Tell me what happened to her father. Thomas's expression changed. He was murdered. By whom? I don't know, but I know his death wasn't an accident. He pulled out a small recorder. Your father was investigating someone before he died. I corrected him. Eva's father. Thomas nodded. He discovered millions of dollars were being moved through his companies. By you? No. Then who? Your friend Daniel. That's impossible. Is it? Thomas pressed a button. A man's voice came from the recorder. Daniel's voice. I didn't have a choice. The recording continued. I only moved the money because Dad told me to. I felt the blood drain from my face. Thomas stopped the recording. Daniel lied to Eva. Why would he? Because he was protecting someone. Who? Thomas hesitated. Then he said a name that made no sense. Your mother. I stared at him. My mother died when I was 12. I know. What does she have to do with this? Thomas pulled out a photograph. It showed my mother standing beside Eva's father. The date was 1999. I couldn't breathe. How did you get this? Your mother and Eva's father knew each other long before either of you were born. Everything I believed about my family felt uncertain. Then a loud crash came from outside. Thomas looked toward the door. They found us. Who? He didn't answer. The lights went out. I heard footsteps. Thomas grabbed my shoulder. Listen carefully. Get Eva out of Seattle tonight. Why? Because they're not looking for her. He looked into my eyes. They're looking for you. A gunshot exploded. Thomas pushed me to the floor. Glass shattered above us. I crawled behind crates. Then I heard Jason shouting. Mike! I looked toward him. He was holding his shoulder. Blood covered his jacket. Thomas was gone. I ran toward Jason. Are you hurt? Just grazed. Where's Thomas? Gone. I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from Eva. Then a message appeared. Mike, please come home. Daniel is here. I stared at the screen. Jason looked at me. What? Daniel found Eva. I knew. The warehouse wasn't the real danger. The real danger was waiting at my apartment. I drove home faster than I ever had before. Jason followed behind me, one hand pressed against his injured shoulder. Neither of us said much. My mind was racing. Daniel was with Eva. Thomas had disappeared. Someone had shot at us. And somehow, my mother was connected to Eva's family. Nothing made sense anymore. When I finally reached my apartment building, every light in the hallway was on. I ran upstairs. The door to my apartment was open. Eva, no answer. I pushed the door open. The living room was empty. A chair had been knocked over. The curtains were moving because one of the windows was broken. My heart nearly stopped. Then I heard a voice behind me. Mike! I turned. Daniel was standing in the kitchen. His hands were raised. Where is Eva? She's safe. Where? She left. I grabbed his jacket. You better tell me where she went. Daniel didn't fight back. Instead, he looked at me with exhausted eyes. She's gone to the only place where they won't find her. What does that mean? He reached into his pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. She wanted you to have this. I opened it. It was a letter. My hands began to shake as I read. Mike, if you're reading this, I've probably already left. I'm sorry. I know those 2 words aren't enough. Nothing I say can erase what I've hidden from you. But I need you to know one thing. Meeting you is the first honest thing that ever happened to me. I didn't expect to fall in love with you. I didn't expect to feel safe. And I definitely didn't expect to imagine a future. But I did. I looked at the engagement ring on my desk. I knew you were going to propose. I'm sorry I ruined the moment before you could ask. I looked up. Daniel was watching me. Where is she? He shook his head. I can't tell you. I stepped toward him. Then I'll find her myself. You don't understand. Then explain. Daniel took a deep breath. Our father wasn't the only person who knew about the money. What money? The money Thomas was talking about. He looked toward the broken window. My father had been moving money for years, but he wasn't stealing it. Then what was he doing? Protecting it. From whom? Daniel's voice dropped. From your mother. I froze. Stop saying that. It's the truth. My mother died when I was 12. She disappeared. No, she died. Daniel stared at me. That's what they told you. The room suddenly felt cold. I stepped backward. Who told me? Your father. I couldn't breathe. My entire childhood flashed through my mind. The empty bedroom. The funeral. My father's silence. The stories I had been told. Everything suddenly felt like a carefully constructed lie. Daniel continued. Your mother was involved with Eva's father. They discovered something together. Something that could destroy powerful people. What? An offshore account. Whose? Daniel looked directly at me. Yours. I stared at him. What are you talking about? The account was opened before you were born. He reached into his pocket and handed me another photograph. It showed my mother, Eva's father, and a third person. I knew him immediately. My father. All three were standing together. On the back of the photograph was a date. 3 months before my birth. And beneath it, written in my mother's handwriting, were 7 words. One day, Mike will need to know. My phone suddenly rang. Eva. I answered. But instead of her voice, I heard a man's whisper. Now you finally understand. Then the line went dead. I stood in the middle of my apartment, staring at the phone in my hand. The call had ended, but the man's final words were still echoing in my head. Now you finally understand. I looked at Daniel. Where is Eva? He hesitated. Then he finally gave me an address. An old cabin near the mountains. Our father used to hide things there. I didn't waste another second. We drove through the night. The rain had stopped, but the roads were covered with water and fog. For almost 2 hours, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel finally broke the silence. Mike, there's something else you need to know. I looked at him. What? My father wasn't killed because of the money. Then why? Because he discovered who had been controlling it. Who? Daniel looked at me. Your father. I felt my chest tighten. My father. Your father and Eva's father were partners. When they realized someone was stealing from both families, they tried to expose him. Who? Daniel looked away. Thomas. I remember the warehouse. The threats. The photograph. The messages. It finally made sense. Thomas had been trying to make everyone believe he was protecting Eva, but he had been protecting himself. When we reached the cabin, the front door was open. I ran inside. Eva. No answer. Then I heard a noise upstairs. I climbed the stairs. Eva was standing beside a window. She turned around. The moment she saw me, she started crying. Mike! I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. I simply held her. I thought I'd lost you. You almost did. She pulled away. You shouldn't have come. I would follow you anywhere. She smiled through her tears. That's exactly what I was afraid of. Suddenly, a noise came from downstairs. Daniel shouted, Mike! We froze. A door slammed. Then footsteps. Daniel appeared at the top of the stairs. He's here. Thomas. He stood at the bottom of the staircase. There was nowhere to run. Thomas looked at Eva. I'm sorry. She stared at him. You killed my father. He shook his head. I didn't. Then who did? Thomas looked at me. Your father. I felt the world disappear beneath my feet. He caused a heart attack by attacking him. Daniel stepped forward. You're lying. Thomas shook his head. I have proof. He placed a folder on the table. Inside were documents, recordings, and photographs. Enough evidence to expose everything. But then sirens appeared outside. Jason had called the police. Thomas tried to run. Daniel stopped him. Minutes later, it was over. The truth finally came out. My father had hidden the evidence before his death. My mother had tried to expose him. Eva's father had helped her. and Thomas had spent years destroying anyone who came close to the truth. But there was one thing I still couldn't understand. Why had my mother disappeared? Months later, I finally discovered the answer. She had gone into hiding to protect me. She had never abandoned me. She had watched me from a distance for years. And then, one evening, I received a letter. It was from her. She was alive. But by then, the most important thing in my life wasn't the family secret anymore. It was Eva. 1 year after that terrible night, I took her back to the same apartment where everything had begun. The rain was falling outside. I opened the blue box. The same engagement ring was still inside. Eva covered her mouth. "Mike," I got down on one knee. "This time, there are no secrets." She laughed through her tears. "Yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger. And as she pulled me in her arms, I realized something. Love isn't about finding someone without a past. It's about finding someone whose future you are willing to fight for. I had lost my family's lies. I had lost the life I thought I understood. But I had found Eva. And in the end, that was the truth worth keeping.